Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy options for game week 33. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. It feels like a while since we did one of these, which is really strange because there's just so much football on right now. But that's pretty much the reason why I've not had a chance to do it because the deadlines have been so tight. So it's nice to have a little bit of breathing space for once and a
Yeah.
little bit of time to clear our heads to make these sorts of big decisions.
Yeah, we've tried to cover off the captaincy in a lot of the other videos, Scoutcast in particular. But yeah, it's great to dedicate a video and a podcast to the captaincy. Because I can't seem to get it right in this resumption of the season. So, Fernandez blank for me last time out. My captain this week, game week 32, is Aubameyang. So, this could be one of those quotes that precedes unfortunate events. So as he blanks, but who knows? Anyway, lots of options. Game week 33. Favourable fixtures for lots of top teams, but will rotation scupper our plans? So this has been recorded, as I was saying, during game week 32, so we're working on a hope and assumption that none of these players that we mentioned pick up an injury or are out. So for us to recommend them, we're just hoping that they're going to be fit, they're not going to be rotated, and they're on paper the best choices. So let's start with Manchester United, home to Bournemouth. They were able to rest players in the Cup. Martial and Rashford look great options. Fernandez played a lot of minutes in the Cup, and we don't know. This is going out before their game against Brighton. Yeah, we're not sure the minutes there. But nevertheless, lots of good options, potentially. What do you think? Manchester United for the captaincy?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned there about rotation fears at this time of the season. I suppose one thing just to include before I kind of go into some of the other assets is that actually between game weeks 33 and 34, United actually have a quite a nice turnaround period, and
Ah,
from 32 into 33 as well, because obviously they're playing Tuesday night, and then they don't play again till Saturday. And then so they play on the fourth, and then they after that don't play until the Thursday. Whereas some teams will have to be playing Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, which obviously would provide you with less opportunity for recovery, etc. So actually, Man United are one of those teams that are in a fortunate position in terms of the way the fixtures have fallen for them, which hopefully means we don't have to worry too much about the rotation that could happen. And of course, when you look at what Man United are trying to achieve, they really do need to lock down top four. I think they're capable of it, but of course that kind of relies on Chelsea and Leicester slipping up, which again is possible. But in order to capitalise on that, United really are going to have to go for these remaining games. So there's lots of reasons why these key players shouldn't be rotated. So though I think that's a big thing to think about in terms of who we go for. I mean, it's a bit of a constantly changing situation, and I kind of feel like it all rests on Pogba. We just simply because we were all looking at Fernandez, weren't we, for that Sheffield United game, thinking, right, well, he's the hub for this team, and up to that point, he absolutely had been, and we hadn't had the chance to factor in the impact that Pogba had on the Man United team, and of course, in that Sheffield United game, the positions he was taking up. He kind of stepped on Fernandez's toes a bit. So in that game, he created four chances. Pogba, Fernandez just one. So on that, it looks like, oh, is Pogba gonna maybe step on his toes a little bit? But of course, that was just one match, and for all we know, that could have just been an anomaly. And we kind of need, it's a bit annoying because obviously this is when we're recording it, but we kind of would be nice to know what impact he's going to have on Fernandez against Brighton, for example. Could he in an away game maybe sit slightly deeper and allow Fernandez to play that advanced role? So there's lots of questions around those sorts of assets, which is why personally for me, I think if you owned all three of the big three fantasy assets everyone's looking at right now in from Man United in Fernandez, Rashford, and Martial, I think Rashford and Martial seem like moving forward the ones that I would be more inclined to go for the captaincy, because if you've got a midfield that's now supercharged by Pogba's presence, sat behind Martial, then if that's going to potentially damage Fernandez's appeal, surely it's only going to supercharge Martial's appeal because he now has two exceptional creators behind him rather than just one. And then, of course, Rashford as well is, for me, is the one who's sort of got the best balance of all of it in terms of he's got assists and goals potentially coming from him. So I like him as an option. But again, I mean, he also makes Martial a better option. So if I'm thinking about a Man United player for this Bournemouth game, and I had to pick, just because I don't own Martial yet, it would be between Martial and
yeah.
Rashford for me. Perhaps maybe. might to differentiate between them might come from from a rank decision. So, for example, if you feel like Rashford's going to be the more captain player, but you still are thinking that Martial's going to explode again. We saw Late Riser have take that approach for the Sheffield United game, and it soared him up the rankings because Martial's ownership is still quite low. I think a lot of people think, well, I've got Fernandes, so I don't need Martial. I think that's a bit of a. I think that logic is not going to help you, because I think anyone who decides to take the risk on Martial is going to make big gains. So, real opportunity there for him. Rashford, I think, a steady, stable bet. I mean, we can talk about Bournemouth, I suppose, but do we really need to? I mean, I think from what we've seen of them since they've come back, they don't look very good. No. Their defensive numbers aren't like awful, but we have to take into account. I think the Wolves game, Wolves didn't really create very much. So, which is a bit strange for them, but they can see their defensive numbers in a home game against Crystal Palace. It was overrun. If you're going to get overrun by Palace at home, and then you got to go to Old Trafford to face this new Man United attack, I think you're in big trouble.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Bournemouth have conceded 3 goals, but only 2 big chances. But as you said, bearing in mind the opposition wasn't as creative as it could have been, and we've just spoken about Pogba, Fernandes feeding Rashford and Martial in particular for goals, then obviously you're going to get, you would assume there's going to be more big chances. Their XGC, their expected goals conceded at the moment, is just over 2. So Bournemouth have been conceding what you would expect from them. They've either been under or overperforming there, as you are really with them. The gap between the matches you've already mentioned there, I think they are strong. Let's see what minutes they get in the Brighton game. Let's see what happens in that as well. But I think on paper, one of Rashford or Martial looks a very good bet for the captaincy this week. I've gone off Fernandes as a captaincy option for those reasons you mentioned, because Pogba is sort of doubling the creativity but halving Fernandes' creativity. He does still have penalties. Last time we saw another penalty being taken, VAR intervened, but Rashford went to grab it. So we still don't know whether there's some kind of Rashford takes the second one or something like that going on. Either way, all good for Rashford. Just speaking of those big chances as well, it's interesting you say about the matches that Bournemouth have played. They haven't come across a lot of big chances. They've still conceded. But Martial is top amongst Manchester United assets for big chances at the moment. In fact, between game weeks 30 and 32, he's top for big chances, 4 there. So, out of all players, that is. Interesting.
Before he's even played in game week 32.
Sorry, yeah, before he's even played in game week 32, he's already top. So that compares with some who have already played, and it's and so going into those matches, he's currently the top there. So that suggests he's going to get some more chances there. I only own Fernandes. I'm not looking to captain him. I'm looking to probably get Rashford in, and he would be a captain consideration, or at least a vice captain. And if I had a setup to go for Martial, I would definitely consider him too. Both great shouts.
I think the key between Martial and Rashford is obviously Martial being the midfielder will get the more points for the goals, which I think he's more likely to get anyway. And then, of course, the clean sheet bonus, which against Bournemouth looks inevitable, really, because their attack looks awful. But the only thing, just to say, that doesn't mean that Rashford is necessarily a bad option in my view, because this is the 2 ways of looking at it. Whilst Martial will probably more richly reward you for what he does achieve, I feel that Rashford is more likely to get more returns as a spread of what's available. We often talk about that term in terms of players who have a number of different areas they could draw on. With him, it's goals, potentially penalties, and also assists. Because his XGI over the last 4 matches, I think his minutes per XGI over the last 4 matches going into game week 31 was the best in the league. So,
right.
Actually, that's if he's getting less points for the goals, but he's getting more assists than Martial, I think he can match him. So, very good options.
It's an interesting situation at the moment in terms of classification. Martial is the midfielder in FPL. He's in fact their striker. Rashford is playing on the wing. He's playing more of a creative midfield role, and he's the forward in the game. So
he's got to be an FPL midfielder next season. I know there's going to be opposition to that, but come on,
and Martial is going to be a forward. That's just
swap them over.
They'll have to swap them over. They just have to on current positioning. But there are other teams to consider. Let's not forget Man City, in particular Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne is a reliable captaincy shout. This looks a good match. Travel to Southampton. Man City in great form, obviously vulnerable as well. So Danny Ings owners can feel, they might get something out of that. Southampton in great form, but KDB starting most games. He's going to get the odd rest, but and arguably Mahrez as well for those chasing could be great picks as well. What do you think about Man City, especially when we're comparing them against Manchester United assets against Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I think I still prefer the Man United assets to the Man City ones. I mean, I talked about United's schedule. Man City's isn't dreadful, but it's still not completely ideal. It's a little bit like they were in the Europa League. So, because obviously they're playing Thursday in game week 32, then they're playing, admittedly, the late game on Sunday, but that's pretty short turnaround time compared to United, who play Tuesday and Saturday. And then after they've done Thursday, Sunday, they're back in on Wednesday at 6:00. So, whereas United have got, let me get this right, Tuesday, Saturday, Thursday, Man City have got Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday. So it's more compressed schedule for a manager who likes to rotate more anyway. So, that's always going to be at the back of my mind. I suppose with KDB, that's going to be less likely to affect him, but we did see him get rotated, I think, for the second double game week game. So it's not out of the ordinary for him to get rotated. I'd say the same about Mahrez. And then, of course, with comparing United and City, I mean, it's not that Man City are going to ever down tools, but there's a lot less on the line for them now, simply because they're going to finish second. That's not going to change. So therefore, they're going to get Champions League, no problem. And actually, that might mean nothing anyway if they get banned from it for 2 years. Whereas United desperately need to throw absolutely everything, including the kitchen sink, at finishing in the top four. So there's always that there for me to kind of make me think, well, United's a bit better. I also think Southampton much better shape than Bournemouth as well. It's very hard to go too much into the numbers that we've got post-lockdown at this point. But just for me, I look at Southampton and they look like a proper footballing team that's just very capable, whereas I don't see that from Bournemouth. I suppose one thing is Southampton typically struggle at home. I think they have the worst home record in the Premier League, and Man City have one of the best in terms of goal scoring away from home. But I'm still undecided as to how much that counts in the behind closed doors world. I mean, the more and more games we get, the more we'll get an idea of whether or not you can still carry those two things over. But it's just, for me, I don't know, it's just too many caveats for me to really be too drawn to potentially rotation prone Man City player for a team that technically has nothing to play for versus nailed on Man United attackers who are in form, can score goals and actually need to if the team's going to achieve what they want to. So for me, it's very hard to compare those two.
Yeah, I mean, as we'll discuss, there's a lot of top teams with good fixtures. So one of the things you have to watch out with the captaincy is that effective ownership as well. And a good way of looking at it is the top 10,000, because they're engaged managers, you would imagine, most of them. So I'm around the 100k mark. So I'm nearly as engaged. Well, I'm engaged, but I'm nearly as good as those top 10,000. So it's a sliding scale. You move down with the effective ownership. But what I've been seeing this week, for example, this week, Jimenez, over 100% effective ownership because of so many people captaining him. So everything he did would hurt my rank. So I was this horrible situation where I was hoping he did nothing. I've had that before. KDB, didn't captain him. Effective ownership, higher. That's what can happen with these types of players. And that's what can happen with KDB. This week, however, I think it'll be spread. But nevertheless, it does show that KDB is a hugely popular captaincy shout amongst all players, and especially engaged managers as well. He's on penalties. He's central to everything they do. He's got goals, assists, bonus. But he could be rested at any moment. But so last 3 matches, KDB is top for shots on target and all shots amongst Man City assets. Also second for chances created, which I found quite interesting. Sterling is in fact created more chances than KDB. Sterling and an outside option for the captaincy. But I think for me, if you're looking at Man City, Mahrez, Sterling are your outside options. Jesus maybe, but I'd put him behind those other two. Top one, KDB. I need to have backed him more. I wish I just left the armband on him all season. Whenever I have put the armband on him, he has richly rewarded me. And I think that's just maybe a lesson for us all to think, maybe we should just back KDB more. He's a good shout for me, captain or vice captain. I haven't decided yet. He's in the mix, definitely. Liverpool. let's not ignore Liverpool. They're rather good as well. They've won the league, and we've still got like practically the whole league to go. So they take on Villa at home. I mean, it literally does not get better than this. In my opinion, lots of people's opinion, the best team, and then in my opinion, against the worst team. But Villa have come back, and their defence has been less porous than it has been throughout this season. But Liverpool taking Villa at home, I just can't fathom a better matchup this season. But who will start? What do you think? Liverpool assets for the captaincy.
Yeah, I mean, I would. So if we had never had Project Restart, with no lockdown, I think I would have completely agreed. I would have said 100%. It does not get better than this. But I mean, I'm probably going to be very a bit of a contrarian here, as I often am, to be fair, in these videos. And I don't actually know if that's necessarily the best fixture this game week. Just simply because, as you mentioned there, Villa's defence since they came back has actually been considerably better. We always like to keep an eye on who the whipping boys are. And we also like to keep an eye on when someone is no longer a whipping boy, because when you're constantly going through the defensive stats every week, the second you start to notice that an auto sort of a team that you'd auto captain against stops becoming that type of team, you have to be careful, because that's if you stay with that in your mind for too long, that they're a team that are really porous, and then you captain players against them, you're going to get blanks. And to be honest, case in point, Jimenez, game week 32. Everybody looks on paper, sees Villa, and in their mind, Villa are a team that get absolutely spanked every week, because they were. But they aren't anymore, in my personal opinion. No. And that's what happened with Jimenez. He didn't really get much of a sniff. He had to keep drifting out wide. And yeah, obviously blanked. So, I mean, that's not to say that Liverpool can't score against Villa. It's more the fact that this game is now harder than it would have been in February or March. And there's numbers to look at that too. I mean, the handy thing about Villa is the way that their games have worked out. We actually now already have 4 matches post-lockdown from them to look at. You can't quite necessarily compare it religiously to everybody else's last 4 matches, because some people have only played 2 since lockdown. They've played 4. But they've conceded, in terms of shots in the box conceded, Aston Villa have conceded 22, which compared against the rest of the league puts them in the top 8, when they were previously bottom of the league for the whole of the rest of the season. Big chances conceded is 3, which is joint second best. But as I said, with the caveat of some of these teams have only played 2 since lockdown. And their XGC is 2.97, which again is the second best. So basically, since they switched from a back 3 to a back 4 where the fullbacks don't actually push forward, they've really reined Target in, and obviously Target has probably got an injury now. I think it'd be easier to convince Neil Taylor to stay deep, because I think he offers less going forward than Target. And they played Konsa at right back instead of El Mohammadi or Gilbert, they're always bombing on. You know, Konsa's played a lot of the season at centre back, so they played a very defensive-minded player at the right back position. As the numbers have shown there, they're still conceding some goals, but they're not getting completely played off the park, with holes left, right, and centre completely exposing them. And Douglas Luiz has also been quite good as well at screening them. And it's made Villa a little bit less attacking. It means they're scoring fewer goals because they are playing a lot deeper. Maybe they need to change that tactic, but I doubt that Dean Smith will try and go for it at Anfield. No. I think he will stick everyone behind the ball. And from what we've seen, they're actually better at doing that now than they were before. Liverpool assets are always going to be good, but I'll come back to the Bournemouth situation. Liverpool don't need to go for this game, because they're going to probably really throw everything at the Man City game, because that's the game they really need to win in their they're going to be these mentality monsters as they talk about. That's the game they've got to win, because that's the game where they're going to get potentially a guard of honour from Man City. It's the opportunity to kind of rub it in their face that we won the league, etc. Does the game against Villa carry anywhere near the same level of importance to them? No. Villa need points to stay up, so arguably it counts more for Villa than it does for Liverpool. And Klopp has said that he is going to make lots of changes to his team as he goes through all of these short turnarounds. So if he's going to throw everything at that Man City game, and the game after it is a home game against Villa, that is arguably much more likely to be the occasion when Salah gets pulled out of the team and he sticks, like someone else on the right flank, or Origi comes in for a game. There's all different options that he can use. Even Alexander Arnold might get benched for. Is it Nico Williams, the 4 million defender who looked really good when he came on recently? So there is. I've got to say, there's lots of uncertainty about
I think
Liverpool.
the next couple
So
of Liverpool games will be interesting to see the tactic. Will he start with the likes of Williams? Will he bench Salah, or will he play them for 60 minutes and then give the youngsters a 20-minute, 30-minute run out?
hmm,
It's hard to tell at the moment. I think it might be the latter, because Salah is going for the golden boot.
yeah, that's true.
Klopp is a
Good point.
football romantic. He likes those types of things. Like with Southampton with Ings, they want their player to win the golden boot. We've seen it so many times with Spurs, with Kane. You want your star striker, your one of your forwards, to be the golden boot winner. So I think Salah's going to play as many minutes as he can because he's a fit bloke, and I think he's going to be hungry for goals. And we've spoken the last Scoutcast before about the situation with Salah and Mane, and it's as you were. Salah, lots and lots of shots, most of them miss, but he shoots so often that eventually some go in, and that's what he does, and he racks them up. Mane shoots less often, but better. His shooting is better, plus he assists more, he's more creative. Salah raced for the golden boot. So if Vardy's on 19, Ings with 18, Aubameyang and Salah on 17, he's not an outside chance of it. He could win the golden boot in the way Liverpool play. So for me, at the moment, I've got the captaincy on Salah because I'm just going to assume he's going to play. And I think on paper, he's the best option. Villa last two matches, yes, they've conceded two big chances, the last two, which tallies with what you've been saying about the last four. But it's a relatively small sample size, 2 and 4, and Liverpool, they're just in a different class, and they got a golden boot chaser going for them. Jimenez wasn't chasing the golden boot.
That's true.
It certainly wasn't chasing.
One thing, well, I mean, Salah, obviously has demonstrated what he was capable of in game week 31. Forgive me if I keep getting the game week numbers wrong. There's so many going on at once. Yeah, in 31 against Palace. A lot of sort of like I'm and ahhing about who should we go for. I think Fernandes was in the conversation, Jimenez was as well. A lot of the main options let everybody down, and Salah in a tough fixture against the Palace defence that have been in really good form got 11 points. So I'm fully aware of the fact that in spite of all the caveats that I've already mentioned, that is not necessarily enough to stop Salah just casually just rolling out a double-figure haul out of nowhere.
I think if any player's going to get an effective ownership above that 100% amongst engaged managers, is going to be Salah, because on paper it looks a great fixture, and on paper he's the best player
That's the thing is the Villa defence. That information hasn't reached everybody. That's why Jimenez was so captained for game week 32. So you have to always remember that as well. Even if you're sat there looking at Villa's numbers and going, "Oh, I know they're pretty good," most people don't. So that, as you say, will contribute to high effective ownership.
And Mane, obviously. I mean, you mentioned Mane's stats there. And his attributes as a player, great option for the captaincy. But Manchester United, Man City, also good options. How about this lot though? Chelsea. Well, I say this lot. It's basically this guy, Pulisic. Now, he picked up a niggling calf injury, we think, against... we haven't had the full details from Lampard as we're recording this. So it's possible he may be benched. He may not play against West Ham in game week 32, but it's game week 33 that we're looking for against a very, very out of sorts Watford. Pulisic. Now, let's assume he's fit. To me, I think he's looked a really exciting player. I brought him in my team as well. I do have a good first sub on the bench, hopefully. So I'm prepared for him going. But I think he just looks like a really great player. He looked great in the FA Cup against Leicester. He looks like a really good differential option who's capable of a 20-point haul. But will his time be managed? And will he be fit to play? What do you think? Pulisic?
Yeah, I mean... So Lampard does his next press conference. I think we're recording on what day is it again? Tuesday. Never know what the day is right now. He's doing it about an hour and a half after we record this. So hopefully by the time that most people are listening to this, we'll know more on him. I mean that obviously is at the back of my. So I don't own him. So at the back of my mind, whether or not I were to own him would be dependent on the injury update. But certainly there's no denying that he's a good player. I owned him. I managed to own him at the sort of like game week 7 through 12 or something, just after he'd bagged 5 goals in 3 games and then did absolutely nothing afterwards. his stats were always very good then, and they're quite good now. He loves the shot. He very much is. I would describe him as of the Salah mold, in that he gets into these positions. With him, it's usually on the left, and will just shoot. He'll have an option in the middle that he could square to, but he'll be like, "No, I'm going to shoot anyway." Which is always exciting for fantasy managers. That's normally the type of player that I personally like to own. So I'm quite a big fan of him. So in his last 4, he's had 8 shots from 213 minutes. So 8 shots in the box, sorry, from 213 minutes, which, with the exception of Pedro, is the best of any Chelsea player. But obviously Pedro not necessarily as likely to play. And 6 shots on target as well, which again is the best of any Chelsea player, but he's only played 213 minutes in that period. Obviously 4 matches for Chelsea includes some pre-lockdown stuff when he wasn't quite fit yet. So if he's going to play, and he's going to play more often, then you expect those numbers to be even higher.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's a bad option at all, but both to own and as a differential captain option, because if he was to get a double figure haul from a goal and an assist or 2 goals or what have you, I wouldn't even be remotely surprised, because he does look very good.
Yeah, no, so we're going to assume that he's fit there. I just had a look at the last couple of matches, similar figures there. What that shows really is that Pulisic and Willian are running the show at the moment. And Pulisic only had 1 start in the last 2. Willian 2. But in terms of... So Willian, I'm not saying captain Willian, but he is an option. 8 chances created more than any other Chelsea player over the last 2. 15 corners, 15 crosses, 5 shots... Got a bit of everything. He's actually the top for expected goal involvement as well. Willian is a very outside, but not actually that odd captaincy shout. Pulisic, however, he just passes the eye test for me. And in terms of shots, 6 in the last 2, 3 of them in the box, 3 on target. And that's what you want to see. You want to see at least half on shot, on target, and very at close range. He's just behind Willian. Expected goal involvement the last 2. Bearing in mind he's only started 1 of those. So yeah, I'll go on for a while about him. I think he's a really good option. I'm around the 100k mark. If it wasn't for these pesky other teams having such good fixtures, Pulisic is one of those, like we were talking about, late risers decision a couple of weeks ago to captain Martial and getting a 42 point haul in his case, captaining him. Pulisic captaining him at this in a certain fixtures, it's that kind of haul you could get. It's a risk though. It's a risk. Lots of other options though. Not as nailed on as for the captaincy as some we mentioned, but there are other options. Jimenez blank this week, but we've seen he can return. He's a good safe bet for the captaincy usually against Arsenal. Vardy against Palace, I'm less keen on that myself, but on paper you never know. And also I think looking at that, Son or Kane against Everton, I think Everton's defences look better, but nevertheless not to be ruled out. I think there's a lot of differential options lurking around. What do you think about some of these other kind of differential captaincy options?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jimenez versus Arsenal on paper, because Arsenal's defence hasn't necessarily been particularly good. The only thing that will just hold me back on Jimenez a little bit is the turnaround time for Wolves has been really short. And while he will have had a bit of a rest going into this Arsenal game, there's been a few occasions where he hasn't really looked like scoring, to be perfectly honest. Just on the eye test, like the shots he's getting are in sort of snatched positions where he's gone and snatched at it. So I like it on paper, but I'd have my sort of concerns. Vardy versus Palace. I don't know. I mean, I like Palace defence. I think it's very good. I think they suffered from not having Guaita at Liverpool. I think that was one of the reasons why they did concede so heavily, because Hennessy's not as good a goalkeeper as Guaita. So they've got him back now. And then Vardy, I don't know. I kind of don't like to deal in too many absolutes, but like I kind of feel like his season is so done. I haven't really seen him play a game of football and look really dangerous for ages. And I'd say the same about the whole team. The whole team looks very subdued and has done for a while. As a team, their underlying numbers in terms of the numbers of shots they're having when they're in the box, if they're a big chance, XG, all of that has actually been quite low for quite some time. And one of the things we kind of generally, we don't like to speculate too much on these things, but we have to kind of focus on the world that we now live in, is that there is uncertainty at this point as to what this potential local lockdown for the city of Leicester actually means for Leicester City. No, I mean, they might be fine in the sense that they're tested twice a week. So maybe they're somehow given some kind of an exemption, or maybe they play their home games in Nottingham or somewhere nearby.
The Premier League teams themselves and the players are pretty much always on lockdown at the moment, or in theory, that's what they should be, with each other.
Yeah.
They're in a bubble amongst themselves.
Yeah.
But because of that testing, so I don't know if they themselves would have a big change. But as you said, it could have a knock-on effect around the stadium.
Nobody knows. That's the thing. Until there's more detail on what that lockdown means for that particular. I mean, for those who have no clue, I should just say the supposedly the infection rate in Leicester is higher, I think, than in some other areas, or it's more of a concern to the authorities. The infection rate in Leicester and in this country right now, the talk is now that probably the next stage of any kind of changes would be that local areas would be locked down from other areas of the country, and it looks like Leicester is going to be the first one where that may happen. So pay attention to the news, but also once we know what happens for I have family in Leicester, so I'm probably going to know more about what it means for them than I know what it will mean for Jamie Vardy until a few days down the line when the Premier League and Leicester and the government have all had a conversation. So that's going to be kind of hanging over Leicester for a little bit. Whether or not that has any impact on FPL, I mean, who knows? But we like to know everything when we're fantasy managers. So I guess just keep an eye on that, I suppose.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. And I think all the time we have to keep an eye on the news for these things. And that's why one of the moves I did this week in general for my team was to get a slightly better bench. I may not need them, but I was going into this game with pretty much no bench. So I've created a bench. and I think that's something that other people need to consider because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Can I mention about Spurs? Because a lot of people are talking about Son. Obviously, I think he's a good player. But from what I've seen so far of Son and Kane since the restart is, if I had to pick one Spurs player from now, I'd probably go with Kane because a lot of Son's stats are very good before he got injured. So if you look at the league last four, I think Son is top for shots in the box in that period. I think he's also top for shots on target. But pretty much all of that was when he was playing centre forward when Kane was injured. Kane's now back, so Kane is the one who's going to benefit from being the spearhead. And Son has been playing really far wide on the left. The goal he had disallowed meant that in that match he actually technically had no shots. So that was his only shot of the game. It didn't stand. So no shots at all in that particular game. Lots of chances created, but he's basically playing a more creative role in the Spurs team now than a threatening one. So I've seen a lot of support for Son. Maybe he's going to get some points in the game weeks that are coming up. But just looking at heat maps and where he's touching the ball and what he's doing with the ball, it's all very much in Kane's favour since everything came back. So it's something sort of just to be keeping an eye on. Maybe if you're on a wild card and you've been thinking about Son, definitely consider Harry Kane as well. So and also, I think there's a chance he could do well at the end of the season.
What puts me off this fixture slightly is in fact Everton. Their defence has been really good. They've gone into game week 32 conceding no big chances in the last two matches, and not conceded obviously. And
one of those was Liverpool.
They have a expected goals conceded of around one. So they marginally overperform. Really small sample size though. But I've got to stress that as a small sample size. But at the same time, I think that highlights when we've talked about the Man United options, the Man City options, Liverpool as well. I don't think Spurs quite cut it for me in terms of the captaincy. So for me, this week, I usually say, I'm definitely going to captain Sunset. Salah at the moment, but Rashford, KDB, and Pulisic all in the mix, depending on minutes and injury news.
Tough choice.
And for you sound like you're much more sort of in the Rashford camp.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that obviously we're recording this before the Brighton game, so that could change things. But yeah, I do really like Rashford as an option. I mean, for me, I've got 2 free transfers for this week, so my captaincy choices may change once I've made those because I don't own Salah at the moment. And for everything I've said about Villa being a tough game, I had penciled in that this was the crossroads that I had the opportunity to get rid of Aubameyang and get Salah back with the cash I've got in the bank. So he may come into the conversation as well. Okay. Martial obviously potentially, because I've got the 2 free transfers. I could potentially get to him if I wanted to. So I'm very much undecided at this point, which comes with the territory at the moment. We'll have the Captain Sensible article between the end of game week 32 and the start of game week 33. So I might be more decisive when I write that than I am recording this video.
Okay.
So I do apologise for that.
No, well, good luck with your captaincy decision, and good luck everyone else. I just wanted to remind people that all the stats that we've been reeling off here, they've come from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. There's some details on the screen now about that, so please do sign up, have a look at that, have a look on site. Valuable information indeed. Please like if you've enjoyed this episode, press that like button, and remember to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos and podcasts. But in the meantime, David, thanks so much for joining me.
Yep, thanks for having me, and good luck with your choices.